Oh, thank you.
We're now in the approach phase. Everything looking
Hi,
good.
everyone.
1,400 feet.
We're going to go ahead and get started. Sorry, we're running a few minutes late. I want to remind you to use the QR codes on your tables to ask any questions. They'll pop up on the screen so you can see what others are asking too. I encourage you to do that, and we'll kind of address that as we go. I'm reading my phone because that's where the questions will pop up for me. So, thanks everyone for coming. We're so excited to have some great panelists with us today to share their current experiences going on in our world. So we have Brian Ffea. He's the CEO at 82 South. I had the pleasure of sitting in with him earlier at a round table. We have Vivian Belzagai.
You got it.
Owner and Ascendant Sustainable Events, and our very own Macon Stephanie. She's the VP Events and Development at Event Fest. So a warm welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time. So we're going to start so our guests know who you are and what you do. So I'm going to start with Brian. Tell us a little bit about your career background and what you're doing in your current role.
Pleasure. Well, thanks again for staying. This is the last part of the conference here. But Brian Ffea, owner and chief experience officer for 82 South. We are an immersive experiential agency. So we work in production side of things for live events, corporate events, exhibit building, festivals, sporting events, and then digital marketing and talent, actually. We do have a talent agency license here in the state of Florida. So I come from a background of television production, 15 plus years, and then moving that on to corporate events, which really lends to live events and festivals as well. So I'm excited to be here to kind of talk about the future of events, see what's on your mind, but also maybe infuse some ideas and concepts into you guys' programs in the coming years.
Awesome. Thank you. Vivian.
Hi, everyone. Are we at an event? I am so excited to be at an event about events. This is definitely refreshing and such a nice change to being in quarantine. I want to thank everybody from the Ffea for having the courage and also, the ability to take this on in such an amazing way. Thank you all, and thank you all for having the faith to be here with us. I am, like I said, the founder of Ascendant Sustainable Events. We help events make sure that they're being good to the planet. We, have helped many music festivals as well as other kinds of events. After I started the company in 2018, I had the surprise of getting a dream job with Ultra Music Festival. I was brought onto the team to kind of be the first one to propose how Ultra could take on sustainability for the first time and implement a full sustainability program. We called it Mission Home, and the program touched 4.4 million people before the gates even opened at the event. And the event, of course, has up to 50,000 attendees per day. So it was a huge undertaking. It took the entire team to make it happen. And, on top of it being a operationally and logistics focused program, it was also very much a front of house community engagement program. And so that's what Ascendant specializes in. It's in, really figuring out how the event can be good to the planet and then how you can get your attendees involved in also learning how they can be good to the planet. So very, very happy to be here, and thank you.
Good stuff. Megan.
Hello, as Dawn said, my name is Macon Stephanie. I'm the Vice President for Event Fest. We are a event marketing and management company out of Tampa, Florida. We specialize in events that are large scale, mostly parades. That's kind of like our specialty. We do the Gasparilla parades in Tampa. We do Tampa Pig Jig. We have some other smaller ones, golf tournaments, weddings, a couple things that we're adding into the mix now. But I was born into a family of event planners. Event Fest has been around for 10 years now, and my family had an event company previous to that, for another 20-something years. So I'm excited to be here. I feel like events are maybe in my DNA. But yeah, I'm excited to be here, excited on the panel. Thanks for having me.
That's great. Thanks so much. So, $1 billion question, and I know we all have a different story, and each one of us has been impacted differently. So we're going to start there. How has the pandemic impacted your business or events? I'm going to start with you.
Woof. Because we're a small office, we're a family-owned business. We have full-time throughout the year, 1, 2, 3, right now 4 employees with 1 part-time person. So with that small office, we only do half a dozen or so, 6 to 10 events a year, even if they are larger scale. So I haven't had an event since January. We're supposed to get married in March, postpone that to October, and I don't have an event outside of our wedding, which I will call an event. We don't have an event scheduled because of this pandemic, and we've had to postpone ones that we do have, $1 million fundraisers that we do, and I don't have an event scheduled right now until New Year's Eve. So I'm about to go January to January without any sort of event, which is really wild for us. Some stuff that we do doesn't transfer online. There's definitely options and folks who are able to take things virtually, like we are with this conference next week and things, which is really great. And then there's some challenges when you have a anticipated crowd of 200,000 people. That doesn't transfer online as well as some of the others. So I'd say we've postponed or seen canceled, certainly as like a calendar year, at least 90%. And I know in talking to some other folks, that have really dived into the numbers, they're down 92, 94, 96% of business. So, both professionally and personally as a pandemic bride, we've certainly been affected.
Yeah, it's crazy. But you do have events on the calendar for 2021 as of
Yes,
now.
I do.
So there's hopefully some hope and big ones, right?
Yep, we are planning as scheduled for the Gasparilla Parades. We in Tampa have the Super Bowl this year, which I know some of you are vendors for, and that's the weekend after Pirate Fest. So we have 2 weekends in a row of our parades and then Super Bowl. So I don't want to speak for them, but from what I know, they're planning as scheduled. We are also planning as scheduled. I do think when events come back, they're going to come back stronger than ever. And I think people in the community are really going to have an appreciation for the live event industry that maybe they didn't even realize, but now people are kind of like, oh, I just really want to go, not only out of my house, but to a concert or to a venue or to dinner or whatever it may be. And I think people are going to have a strong appreciation for the events that do come back in fall 2020 or 2021 and beyond.
I think that we all probably would experience that people are so hungry and thirsty for doing stuff. So we're in a room together in various industry here and all very hopeful, and we know that there's a lot of support and people wanting to go to our event. So that's the good news. Vivian, how about you? How has it changed?
I definitely echo the woof.
It's like the sound of 2020.
Yeah, it is. So we were about to load in Ultra when everything started to shut down, and Ultra was one of the first ones to get canceled. So that was a big hit, right, in the beginning. And yeah, we haven't seen any proper events, that are fully confirmed. We have something on the calendar for December, but we're still unclear of whether that's happening or not. And so, yeah, we've had to, kind of take a step back and think about what it is that we can do in the interim. I totally agree with you. I think that, long term, when events come back, people are going to be hungrier for them than ever.
Yeah.
And I think that as the industry, it will be our responsibility to make people feel safe again, to make people, realize that this can be done in a way that is respectful and that they can feel safe. And then, eventually things will go back to normal
The
someday.
new normal, right?
So yeah, in the meantime, we've just been thinking about what else we are good at within the realm of sustainability. And like I said, that's community engagement. You know, how do we get the community involved in sustainability programs of all kinds? Really, it's something that can be adapted to many industries. So we're focusing on that for now. We're also thinking about, you know, how to support film and television production shoots, which are happening more and more as people go streaming, or they're putting things virtually. And hey, a virtual event is the most sustainable, so we're a little bit happy about that, but mostly sad. But yeah, I mean, it's been a learning process. It's been a lot of reflection, and we're happy to kind of be seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, like you're saying.
And Brian, what about you?
We went into it with, I think a lot of us did, right, that, okay, this will be 3 months, right, and we'll be back in the swing of things. So that March, April time period, you know, we were just kind of hunkering down, and, you know, they'll come back. You know, April came around, and May, and then we were like, oh, you know. We all said it, exactly. So we kind of looked at the full ecosystem of events and how we could tap into it to continue the recognition events that are happening, or taking for instance, a festival. There's sponsorships, there's activations, right? Those are all in-person type of experiences. And what we've done, though, is we've exploded those experiences into something that's now capable of doing it online. So having an experience for a sponsor that would have a sponsored lounge. What were they doing at that sponsored lounge? Well, maybe they were doing a product launch or a release of a new beverage. How can we do that in a platform now virtually? So we've really kind of focused on the virtual side of things to kind of keep things going in our wheelhouse, but also kind of taking a step back and thinking, once this wall comes down, everyone's going to be coming to each and one of us, and the resources are going to be, you know, we're going to be tapped out because a lot of companies may be going under or laying off, furloughing. Those companies those employees are now elsewhere. So the demand for our expertise, all of your expertise and vendors are going to be extremely high, and just trying to set that up to kind of figure out what's those best practices and experiences that we can bring to the table for them.
That's awesome. So
I
glad
should also mention I am from Central Florida, so it's definitely geo-specific. I mean, you got Universal, Orlando, Orange County Convention Center. Some of you have went to the Together Again Expo. So it is very geocentric, which is also a difficult thing to kind of work around, because sometimes you're not able to explain that to some individuals that are in a different location that this is going to work, because it's not going to work just because of the parameters that, you know, city ordinances, county ordinances have on restrictions. So it's definitely a learning curve for us too.
we're going to stay along the virtual thought process. So we've got a question. So I'm going to start with you on this one. What virtual event impressed you the most since COVID started, and why? There's been a lot of talk, so
A lot of talk.
Let's go.
On what virtual event that I've attended? So if some of you guys that weren't in the virtual roundtable that I discussed, we're taking a platform of broadcast technology, so your typical live event components, lighting, sound, video, video playback, but we're integrating that with gaming engines, so your PlayStation, your Xbox systems, so your essentially your 360 immersive experience. So we're putting these two technology components together and creating a essentially immersive 3D gaming experience for viewers or attendees. So that's what we're working on, and we're doing a lot of fun with that. Not only just our corporate events, but some sponsors that are, or I should say brands that want sponsor activations put together. We're creating things for them to kind of experience something a little bit different and really tap into the data and analytics on that, because that's all relative to your ROI and for future marketing and sponsorship packages for the future.
Okay, Vivian, we'll go with you next on that same.
So I don't know if anyone here has seen what Tony Robbins is doing for his conferences. They've developed this studio that essentially puts him in the middle of almost a 360 giant screen where he can see every attendee via Zoom conference in small tiles. He can call out a specific attendee and they'll bring up their video and then he can interact with the attendee, live, which for those of us who know Zoom really well, that is such a huge feat. I've seen some of the videos on what's happening backstage and it is incredible what they have put together. So I was really impressed with that. And then I've also been on a few events on the Hop-In platform. If anybody has used that, it's really, I think, quite a powerful platform that gives you the essence of having a general session versus having breakout rooms, being able to chat between attendees. There's even like a one-on-one networking function. So it's really, really cool. I've appreciaed those.
Hop-In, is that what it is?
Hop-In.
So check it out. I'm not familiar with it.
H-O-P-P-I-N, I believe.
HOP.IN, I think. Yeah.
It's both mobile and web-based too, which is nice. Yeah.
That's great. Ms. Macon.
So since we don't play necessarily in the virtual world, for our event planning purposes, we are not doing virtual events. So I've attended a couple of them for studying purposes when we were looking at taking something virtual, and saw a couple things that I liked and didn't like. It's going to sound like a shameless FFEA plug, but I'm really looking forward to the virtual FFEA conference next week. I've been in a couple of virtual conference and conversation type of events, and the interaction piece wasn't quite where I had hoped it would be, and I know that that's a piece for me that I miss the most about events. My poor husband and I would go to the grocery store and I'm trying to talk to strangers and he's like, stop, they don't want to talk to you, bring it back. I'm like, people, I gotta talk to you, I gotta talk to people, I gotta hug people, I gotta, whatever. And so with the virtual, that's certainly still the piece I'm missing. I think that Tony Robbins thing sounds super cool. Haven't attended one of those, but I do think there's some features with the rooms, the chat rooms that you can chat in and things like that for FFEA for some folks that aren't here and even some folks who, I might not know yet, that I'm really actually looking forward to that conversation, because like you said, with Zoom and stuff, it's so hard. Everyone just talks over everybody else and you have to put everybody on mute and then, it's not quite the same. So I'm really looking forward to the FFEA one actually.
Me too. So anybody in this room have any kind of Zoom fatigue? I mean, I have to say, it is the way that we have seen each other and others in our industry and our networks and our groups, so I'm pretty grateful for that, but don't want that as a long-term anything in our world, although I don't think it's going anywhere. So we did a panel last week with some sponsors, and something was said to me that I thought was perfect to describe all of us. Everyone's looking for the golden ticket, the Willy Wonka golden ticket of what to do and how to do it, and there is no such animal. We're all writing this playbook together. Macon, I'll start with you. What do you see as the biggest changes to the industry moving forward? We know we're going back to 2019 and how we did stuff, so 2021 is going to look very different for all of us. What do you think is here to stay and changing?
Sure. So we actually had a conversation last night at dinner, and overall, I think a silver lining or an improvement that we can see, not just with events, but with just the environment worldwide, is I think hygiene at events will increase and continue to be more of a focus. Think about the different food sampling events or competition events, we have a barbecue competition event, or even black tie things that are catered, and events big and small that have some sort of catering element like most of them do. I think there's an emphasis on cleanliness and safety for not only like the vendors, but for the attendees. You know, sometimes you go to a rodeo or something, or a you know, parade or whatever it may be, and maybe there's samplings of food everywhere, but maybe there's not as many hand washing stations or hand sanitizer, or you see people, we've all seen people like walk out of a portalet that's like out of hand sanitizer. And, you know, I think an emphasis on that stuff is good all the way around. So I hope that part's here to stay.
Hand sanitizer will be our best friends forever. Ms. Vivian.
So yeah, certainly the public health and safety initiatives I think are, you know, going to be the most prominent, especially on the initial comeback. I think just unfortunately lower numbers of attendees in the beginning, right? Like we're just going to have to find ways to have people have their own space and utilize the same spaces, but still, you know, spreading people out and giving them their own space, or utilizing larger spaces. Certainly what I hope to see is a huge shift towards outdoor events. You know, that's one of the things we specialize in is, you know, we definitely want to make sure that we're taking care of the environment when an event takes place outdoors, where there's grass, where there's trees and vegetation, maybe wildlife. You know, and that also gives people the opportunity to experience that event in a different setting, you know, appreciate the nature that might be around. So that's something that I hope to see.
Brian?
I think it's in our hands, right? So what is that future event experience for both operational logistics planning side and for the viewers? I think at this point in time, we're in a position to kind of come up with this new SOP in a sense. What is it that we, and having conferences like this is working with best practices and having conversations and collaboration, is we kind of get to grow this to what we want it to be for 2021 and on. So obviously health and life and safety is important because the pandemic is definitely something real. But I mean, take it back, a couple of years ago, active shooters. You know, so we've kind of gone through this, you know, pandemic or transition for gate entries and live events, but now we really get to write our own book, and I think that's kind of a powerful thing, and we have time now to do that too.
Thanks, great. Brian and I talked a little bit earlier about exactly that, and that when this all started, I think all of us, and on FFEA calls and IFEA calls and anybody else that you could talk to, we were all looking to each other and what are you experiencing and what are you doing about refunds? So the network of people that we've reached out to, I think, is something that we've not embraced as much as we do now, and I hope that's something, best practices is what I love most about FFEA and over the years, but I think we all have so much to share with each other, and all of us have different perspective. You know, I'm an event planner, but the vendor side and supplier side has a whole nother piece of it that I may not even think of how it affects them. So I think that, you know, I would encourage everyone, we're all so hungry for what did you do for the last 4 months, that now we're looking at things a little different, but I think we should make sure that we continue as we do move forward to continue to share the best new practices that people have discovered, because we are all learning it, though share the love and share the knowledge. So kind of along these lines, and we may have covered it a little bit, but what are some of the things that you would recommend that event producers need to consider to move forward safely for events? I know I never paid so much attention. I am one of those that's a little skeeved on touching buttons and stuff, but I certainly pay attention to every single thing my hand is on now, and I'm sure most of us in the room do. So we're looking at things a little bit differently, and that's not going away. So Macon, I'll start with you on that.
Sure.
As an event producer, what are you going to do differently?
Sure. So my next event, you know, my next large-scale event is in January, and so for us, as any event planner in here would know, you know, we're certainly having discussions on items that may change, but it's also realistically in the event world like too soon to put any of those like hard and fast protocols into place necessarily. We don't know what the landscape's going to look like. And we were talking about it yesterday in one of our small groups. You know, in general, moving forward, and my recommendation for now would be to take the time that you do have as the downtime to like get your house in order. We, you know, redid our website and worked on some projects that you kind of kicked down the road. And so, you know, we're taking that time, you know, while we're still in planning mode, maybe it's not as crazy as it normally would be, to kind of take, you know, stock of what we could work on and things that we could do better. And like you said, the sharing and the networking, that's been really great. I know Ffea does a great job of that, but not necessarily like outside of Ffea, you don't necessarily see in the events industry like a swapping of best practices and stuff. People are kind of like, well, this is how we do it, and I'm not going to tell you how we do it. But it's been really great to see people like not worried about that piece of it, and to say like, let's just collaborate. Like, let's, you know, you can just learn from it. Like, you'll see sometimes, not at Ffea because I've had such a great experience here with it, but like, I know you and I've even talked about it. Sometimes you'll have people talk to you about sponsors or about some other things, and they don't want to tell you who their sponsor contact is, or they don't want to, you know, they're just like nervous to share information. But then you come here and we share that information, and it's so reciprocal, and you learn so much. And so we're just trying to like get organized, get our house in order, share, you know, within our event community, both locally and nationally, and learn from each other that way.
Fantastic advice. And yeah, don't hold everything so close to the vest. None of us are giving up our whole sponsor list and saying, here's everybody I know, but don't be afraid. Matt and I have done that over the years and shared different sponsors. Who do you have? You know, if you've got a really good sponsor and you know their demographic and who they're looking for, it'll go a long way for you to bring something to their table that you think is worthwhile for them to sponsor. What they do with it, it doesn't matter, but that says you're listening to them and you know what they're looking for. So you've already got them. They're not going away from you to go here. So sharing is definitely caring.
Especially with the geography differences, you know, I'm not necessarily, not that I would be holding it, but, you know, you and I, when we talk about it, or, you know, me and Matt, we're geographically in different locations. So, like, I'm not worried if, you know, Coca-Cola or whoever, they still also need to promote to Fort Lauderdale and Tampa. It's not like it's one or the other. So I think that has helped people, like, since it's been Zoom and it's been people in different geographies, like, people have been, you know, more willing to share and collaborate.
I think that's been a silver lining during this. There's been a lot more of that, and asking each other what you're doing, what are you experiencing. So I know that that's our normal conversation.
Yeah, normally you're just so fast-paced and you're just always playing catch-up, and you're like, nice to see you, bye, like, don't have time to ask you, like, how you're doing, or, you know, if you're struggling or what it is, and now everyone's, like, taking a breath, and I think that's been good for the community, for the event community.
Agreed. Vivian?
Completely agree. I mean, that's what we've been doing internally, is getting our house in order, doing things we've been pushing off for a long time. For years, I wanted to put out a sustainable event guide. You know, had all these ideas in my head, just wanted to get them on paper and give them out so that people, you know, especially smaller events who can't afford to bring on a consulting company, who can't afford to bring on project managers, and if they really have the drive to do it, they can do it themselves. So that was the first thing we did. We released it for Earth Day, and it's on our website, greenyourevent.com, right on the first header page. So there's a full, you know, kind of guide of how you can make your event sustainable there, and we even address public safety and how you can have public safety initiatives that are also sustainable. So that's what we've been doing, and then also what we've been recommending, right? Like, you know, guys, you have all the time in the world now. You know, event people are always the busiest people in the world. We never have time to consider how to do something really differently, how to, you know, completely re-strategize our operation. So that's exactly what we, from a sustainability standpoint, have been recommending, is if you've ever had time to think about how your event's going to come back after this amazing break that the planet just got while we were all on lockdown, please use some of the time to think about how we can step lightly back on the planet and be good to the earth with our events. So, that's what we've been focusing on and the information that we've been putting out there. And then, of course, just trying to think on how it can apply to each individual, new initiative that's going to come out of this.
Great. Brian?
So when events come back, it's definitely going to be a different environment for promoters, producers. I'm kind of thinking this more of a production standpoint, right? And I kind of look at it twofolds, where a viewer or an attendee's perspective, like how are they going to feel safe come here? But also for your team, your potential volunteers, and your vendors too. So I think when you start to think about it, it's like maybe having those conversations with vendors now. What is their best practice? What are their protocols for sanitizing, setup, crew, from a production, a logistic, if you do your hour-by-hour production schedule, you're going to have to expand that because of social distancing, if that's still around, or the comfortability of labor not wanting to be around a group of 5 people at once. So it's just kind of really, not to say that you need to rent the space an extra day, but it may have to, right? We may have to add additional time and hours to get something up to where it needs to be to actually open the gates or go live. So.
One of the things we realized when we were still, planning on doing the events is the burden is not ours alone. When you have partners, you're working at a hotel, they cover that burden because that's their requirement. When we were doing transportation buses, they have their own piece of it to ensure. So the burden lies on the things that we control, but work with your partners on that because it's not ours and ours alone, although we're ultimately responsible, but your partners, your vendors have their own set of requirements that they're need to adhere to. So it makes it a little more palatable when you break it down that way, so it's not so daunting, it's not all on you. So just a consideration. So we have a question up here. What are fun, effective, and cost-efficient ways to ensure social distancing at festivals? If that's still a thing. I love that he said that, and we all, I think, say if social distancing is still a thing. So we're all planning for that, and hopefully we don't have to use it. I'll start with you, Brian.
Fun, effective, and cost-efficient.
Cost-effective way for social distancing. Little games.
I thought this could actually be really relevant to some of the planners or producers here. I actually came across it maybe April. 6-foot distancing for in Asia. I don't know if have you seen this, where they put 6-foot blow-up balloons, hats, right? I mean, how silly is that? But that's cost-effective, kind of fun, right? Take it to the next level, right? I'm always about the next level. Why not turn that into a contest? Who has the best hat? It becomes a voting via text or voting via an app. Now you've got something that's going to viral, social media. So something simple as that can now just be exploited into different ways. I mean, even, I'm just going off of this, you could even have like a runway. You could, the top 10 then go up on stage and now you have a runway show for those hats. So like just take things simple like that, and we're all creative. We're in this industry, we're creatives. I think you can make something of something so small. I'll think if I can think of something else too, but that's something.
Did you see the inner tube one? I saw one with the same. Not that one. I guess you could use your hands and stuff. So we don't social distance from who we're with. So that's what the weird thing is when you do a footprint. We do grandstands, and when I heard that it was 12 seats for everyone in order to social distance, well, that tells a story. Cost prohibitive, not happening, no matter. But the formula for it all, because we're hearing 6 feet, it's not really 6 feet. If you're a family of 4, the circumference is different than you being, so that's a whole formula that is an interesting thing to figure out, and how do you even do that when you're selling tickets and stuff. So Hopefully it's not a thing.
It could be,
but-
I was just thinking, it could be as simple as getting a sponsor to have their brand on a hat or on a t-shirt. You come in, now, what does it say? Are you 6 feet away? Or you can be really fun with that, I think, too, as well.
Contest and engagement, right?
Yep.
Vivian, what do you think?
Did you see the guy with the pool noodles?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's all sorts of really fun, creative things, and I love the idea of doing something user-generated, right? The favorite idea that I had heard of is there was going to be a festival that took place in a parking lot, and they were going to bring local artists who like normally do murals on walls, and they were going to spray paint the grounds and use their artwork to kind of designate areas. And so they were going to do something where like when you came in, you get like a certain color band and it would match the color of the artwork, and so you'd go there. Of course, I know how cost effective that might be. I do think that the community is eager to participate and will be eager to participate when we come back. But yeah, I think something like that, something colorful, something fun, something that also like identifies each group with itself, create that camaraderie, within each small group could be really fun.
How are we keeping them away from those Pipe Fest? What are we doing fun?
So since we're still a few months out for that one, we don't have, candidly, social distance concepts in place. That event is unique in that it's a free community event. So there's no, there are tickets and things that you can purchase, but there's no like gate that you have to walk through. But I think a couple of things, for as far as like a cost-effective way, something that's inexpensive, like she mentioned with the cars, we're certainly seeing a lot of like parking lot party type things. I mean, you could have something as small as a trivia night, like at your local restaurant, and instead of like going into the restaurant, you're getting takeout and they're bringing it out to your car, and you and your team or you and your spouse or whoever or whatever that you're social distancing with, if you guys are all staying in the car, we've certainly all eaten food in our car at some point, so you could be getting takeout from there. You could still play like trivia. They have things that you can do where you just match your frequency on your radio and you can like listen in, or it could be online, but you're still there and you're still supporting, your local spot. Something that's small like that is certainly like doable, and for a restaurant or something that doesn't have an event planner, that's something that cost-wise they could still accomplish. They just need to use spaces in their parking lot. And then for, excuse me, and then for a slightly larger concept, I think a lot of us saw the pictures of the concert where they had put like maybe a 4x8 or something platform up, and then like had done rope and stanchion like around it to give everybody kind of like their own little VIP box, if you will, but like on a great lawn. And if you didn't see it, we were talking about this actually yesterday. With the decking and stuff, that part's not necessarily the most cost efficient, but if you're just using a great lawn or space that you would have used otherwise for like an outdoor concert or something, you could either put 6 or 8 foot tables around you, like a U with some chairs. I mean, tables are like $10, chairs are like $1. It's like $50 for that setup. Or you could do like rope and stanchion, and I think they had like 4 people that could sit with them. So if you and your family member that you see a lot or something like that, or coworkers or somebody that you are still seeing a lot, and maybe not like social distancing from, like you guys could all go, and then it has like this barrier, and there's tons of space between my little box and your box is at least 6 feet over that way, so everyone kind of has their own space. But it actually looks really cool. It made it very it made everything seem like it was VIP, just on a much smaller scale. And I think, for larger outdoor festivals like we're talking about, there's certainly the possibility to do something like that without spending a ton of money.
most people sitting in a room would not be able to just say, oh, that's $50. Like, we're all have that unique ability to put something together in our head in 5 minutes and kind of know what it would cost. So I love that so much. So anybody else have any questions or even share some ideas of maybe what you've done that's been successful? We're all looking for stuff and sharing information. So scan that, and you don't have to ask a question, but maybe something that we can talk about as a group. So while you're thinking about that and doing it, I see everybody with their phones out. We'll talk about sponsor trends. There's been a lot of discussion, all of us, that's how we make our money and need things sponsored. What are you seeing in that realm of doing it, not doing it, standing by? I know what my experience, we all have different experiences, but I feel like it's been kind of a standard across the line. So Brian, I'll start with you, what you're seeing in the sponsor world of them sticking with a brand or an event regardless.
Sure. I think it definitely varies on the brand too. As you know, they always budget the year before. So, and in most cases in corporate America, if you don't use it in this year, you're not going to get that money for next year, right? So they're out, some companies are out there just trying to get rid of their money through activations and just pop-ups and stuff of that sort, because if they don't use it, they're going to lose it for next year's things. But I think going into the mindset, they're really going to want to know what is the ROI, right? They're going to really want to know what's your procedures, what your protocols are for, coming back in to a live experience, right? So I don't think the money's not going to be there. And the other thing too that I've learned is a lot of your sponsorship people may not even be with the company anymore. So now it's rebuilding relationships, and that's the thing that should be starting right now, is seeking out those sponsors and really ensuring that that team is still around. And if it's not, making sure that you reconnect with those individuals somehow, LinkedIn, whatnot, or get re-looped back into that department and curate the relationships that you might have. So I think that's probably, I'll skip everything else. I think it's or relationship building within the sponsorship team is the most valuable thing that happened right now going into 2021.
That's a really great point. We've seen a lot of people furloughed and whatnot, so I hope everybody here is doing their well checks on their sponsors. Right. We weren't asking for money, but we were certainly talking to them all, so the relationships are so important. Ms. Vivian, I've got a few questions up there, so do you mind if we skip to that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's do that. So this is a good one because we're all talking about if. So are you concerned that the COVID actions that are implemented today will come back to haunt our industry when we have to continuing change, sorry, I'm old, I can't see that far, having to maintain those. So we're all working on this stuff going away. What are the thoughts if it doesn't? Macon, I'll start with you.
Thanks for picking me first.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
You have the first event coming up.
Yeah, so I would say, and part of this touches a little bit on the question you just asked about sponsors, I'm not necessarily concerned about it haunting us in the future. I'm sure there's people that would disagree. I think it's kind of like, when you go to the airport now, you take your shoes off, you go through security, and I think there's going to be some things that stay like that, like maybe, some of the hand sanitizers and some of the more easily accessible pieces. I don't think that the social distancing and stuff is going to stay forever. I don't think that's in our human nature. As long as we can get back into it safely, I think that's the direction people want to go. They want to be shoulder to shoulder at a concert, or dancing at their friend's wedding, or, whatever it may be. But I'm not concerned about it haunting us. I think, the pieces that prove to be best practices would have been best practices anyways. Like more hand washing stations, that's good anyways. Does it add to the budget? Yes, but also do you have, an energy company or somebody, who's focused on sustainability or health or something like that, that you can now create a sponsorship package from that, because I don't have a hand sanitizing sponsorship package, but I could going forward. So I think you gotta just see like the things that you think are gonna stay, or that even if they all went away and everyone said like, we don't care about that, I personally would say, yeah, I want my events to have these things still. And how do we, use that long term, and how do we, find a silver lining in that? And if we long term say like, yeah, it would be smart to have hand sanitizer, in crowds, maybe it wasn't always something that people did as a promo item, but maybe it's a more popular promo item now. Obviously we're in Florida, so chapstick is popular, sunscreen is popular, like add hand sanitizer in there. And now you just, if you sell a sponsorship to that, long term, there's hand sanitizer, which is a benefit, and then we sold another sponsorship that didn't previously exist, also a benefit. So I'm not worried about that piece of it. I think if anyone is going to adapt, it's going to be the event industry. So I think that's what we do best, is like last minute changes. And, we all made a run a show, and then it's, can I say shit? Gone to shit? Can I say that? It's gone to shit. So
I encourage swearing.
So, I'm not worried about it, but I am at the same time not intending to sound like I'm brushing off what it means to the budget, or, there's certainly complications with some of it, but I think long term, I think it'll be worth it.
I think it's in our nature that when we see a challenge or something we need, we are going to find a way to underwrite that cost.
Yeah, how
so
do I
it just
sell
becomes
that?
an opportunity. Exactly. What can I do to sell that? So I think that's brilliant. You kind of skeeved me out with the no water left in the sink and the porta potty. So we need that.
It, yeah.
I know. Ms. Vivian.
So, completely agree with you. I think that, if anybody's going to get creative with how to make money off of this stuff, it's going to be us. Both from a sponsor standpoint and also just from, creating our own versions of things. I can already imagine that Ultra is going to design masks that are super cool and, sell them for merch. I think that I'm not as concerned because I guess I'm thinking on the scale of, a massive festival that has impacts for the city. I think that, since the city or the county will be the one that's, kind of putting these requirements on the event, it would make sense for them to also be the ones to lift them when it's safe enough, because then the city can now welcome more attendees. They can now have more events. So for me, that's always what I think is like, who's putting these rules on me, and when are they going to take them off? So yeah, I think that it'll go away as soon as it can, and in the meantime, we can get creative with how we handle it.
It's interesting with the cities. So we met with the code compliance. Their normal stuff is obviously not checking masks in a restaurant. So they were worried about the relationship because they have good relationships with the restaurants. This changes everything. So in our city of Fort Lauderdale, we met with that person, and she's like, I don't want to do compliance with you. I want to hand out masks. So when you talk about that, they're looking at it too, because everything we do in our cities benefit the cities. It benefits the businesses in the cities. So they're all looking for how to best work with us, hopefully always. But that was an interesting perspective. So while we knew that we had a mitigation problem for crowds, they didn't want to serve that role, but to hand out stuff. So that's kind of cool, a cool place to be. I know we only have a few more minutes, so Brian, I'm going to ask you that same question.
I don't think it's going to haunt us either. I think it's just adding another layer to essentially our procedures and protocols, right? It's a learning curve, right? I don't really think it's going to come back and haunt us. And it's not just events, right? It's retail, it's cruise lines, it's theme parks. So that standard is just going to evolve, just like I had mentioned, bringing in a clear bag into a stadium. It's just going to happen. It's just part of the process next.
Totally agree. I feel like we're going to get back to our lives. They're going to be different, but those things are just going to be normal.
Adapt to it.
Hand sanitizer is not going away. You're going to see that everywhere forever. So get somebody to pay for it and brand it. We have one last question. Do we have time for that?
That's a Vivian question.
Oh, sorry.
I can't answer that one.
Okay, so, yes, so the question about packaging, takeout, I mean, disposables in general, has been the biggest question that I've gotten. And I want to first bust the myth that disposable is safer. In some cases, of course, yes, it is, but in most cases, a disposable item is just as much risk as a reusable item if it's properly stored and properly cleaned. You know, if you think about it, if a single-use plastic water bottle is sitting on the same table as a reusable cup and someone coughs on it, that single-use plastic bottle has just as much germs on it as the cup that was sitting right next to it. So it's really all about the systems that we put in place, all about how we are, you know, handling our own operations. And I do want to kind of inform everyone that I'm very connected with the reusables industry. You know, these different companies that have you know, created reusable cup systems that do you know, cutlery and all sorts of different items that can be used like this. And they have been, since the very beginning, they knew that they were going to be under attack. So they have spent this entire time, you know, studying, researching, doing the scientific work of how reusables can be safe, and all of them have come back with plans that have been approved by doctors, by scientists, by labs that have tested them. So I have great faith in what the reusables industry is going to be able to do, not only for events, but restaurants, for hotels, for, you know, anybody who's having to switch to disposables for this time. So I'm happy to share also, there's a great document put together by Upstream, and it has all of kind of the data and the scientific research behind why reusables can be just as safe, if not safer, because they're more often sanitized and they're stored in a certain way. So yeah, I think that, you know, we can absolutely switch back to reusables. It's just about being thoughtful about how we're doing so, and you know, doing a bit of homework.
So maybe just run with each of you, any last thoughts, any words of wisdom for the group? Megan, we'll start with you.
Sure, I'd say, you know, I'm a big believer in being a steward of the event industry. I'm very proud of Ffea for having an in-person conference. I'm proud as I look out here, and I'm not going to do the fast math, but say there's 50 of you, and everyone, maybe one person who's got a water bottle they're drinking from, everyone has a mask on, everyone's spaced out, everyone's, you know, doing what they're supposed to do. And I think it's our responsibility ultimately as planners and even as vendors for the event industry. We're going to have to do things like this. We're going to have to take the first step. We're going to have to prove that it can be done. You know, we can't necessarily ask the general public to, you know, help prove that for us. We have to do things like this and, you know, connect and share and collaborate and figure out how, you know, like Evan mentioned earlier, doing like the seating charts for social distancing and, you know, making the events safe, but also practicing them, you know, as much as possible, like in this concept. And I think for us, you know, this is a great like proof of concept that, you know, we do have a bunch of people here. They all are, you know, sitting where they're supposed to sit, and they're wearing their masks, and they're, you know, going through the, I know I'm not supposed to call it a car wash, but going through the, going through the car wash on the way in, you know, and we have hand sanitizer stations everywhere, and, you know, I think it's so great to see, like, if you are complying with these things, then it's possible. And we can continue to do something like this on a larger scale and do something outside and have more and more people. I think it's going to be huge. So I would just say, you know, hold strong. The people who like are the toughest in this situation are going to be the ones who make it out on the other side. We even talked yesterday, it sounds really selfish, but this time period is going to weed out, some of what maybe isn't best for the industry. I think what's best for the industry and those who are steadfast in their ambition and what they're looking to do, those are going to be the people who come out on the other side. And then when the general public's ready to meet events with more energy than they've ever had, you still want to be there. So I would just say, hold faith, check out the Restart Act. It's really important. I know Lib mentioned it earlier, and Suzanne's going to push it out again. That'll help a lot of us get to that point so that we can hold on for as long as we need to and then be ready when everybody else is.
Thank you. That's great advice. Vivian, your words of wisdom.
So I think what this time has taught all of us is a sense, or maybe forced all of us to kind of learn is a sense of accountability that we've never been, quite held to before, and that can be intimidating, especially from the health standpoint, because it's so scary of, what could happen. But, like you said, I think that the same way that we are stewards of our industry, we should be stewards of health, and we can be stewards of sustainability and protecting the environment. So I think that's what I've been focusing on, and I've wanted to kind of turn the learnings that we've had from trying to get our community engaged in our sustainability programs. How can we continue to engage our community now in our health programs, now in our, in taking care of each other? So it doesn't have to be so intimidating for the event like we were talking about before, right? Let's find ways to get our attendees involved in this. Let's communicate with them in a way that we never have before. Let's, lift the veil on the curtain and tell them everything that we're doing behind the scenes to keep them safe, to keep the planet safe, to keep everybody happy, and to keep our industry going.
Perception is reality.
Sure. I think I will leave this with thank you all for staying and the last session of the day. I think it's a testament to know that I think each one of you know that where you're at is just not a 9-to-5 job. It is your passion. This is what we live and breathe. We put on events. So having that mindset to kind of continue that push to evolve and be creative and know that you're here because you're passionate about providing something to the community, I think is a testament that you guys are here in person and virtual next week. That it shows that your passion. I think going out of that, if you keep on remembering that your passion and this is not just work, you're going far.
Thank you so much, all of you, for taking the time and joining us. And thank you, everybody, for being in person. We're so happy. You care that you're touching what I did. Infomercial for Clorox. Here you go. This is our friend, right?
We're just a few minutes behind, but we are going to try to start the next session in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So if you're staying for our closing session for our board induction and award ceremony, I do have chocolate and champagne, so that'll maybe put you over. So they're going to bring that out soon. You guys can take a 5-minute break or just stay here. It's up to you. We're just going to do a quick little stage change here real fast. Thank you, guys.
But please stay, come back, and join us so we can end it out on that note.